Hi, and welcome to our podcast. I have the pleasure of talking to a contractor that I've known for 15 plus years. Ernest is the owner of Fresh Start Projects, a renovation contractor here in Calgary. Our podcast today is Designing and Building Your Renovation. Expert advice for Calgary homes. We are going to be discussing many aspects of residential renovations. Today, we plan to discuss different scopes of renovations, how to plan and prepare, budget, timelines, and expectations, Calgary-specific considerations, what should homeowners look for when looking for a residential designer or contractor. Thanks for joining me, Ernest. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
No problem. It's great to be here. I always look forward to talking with you, Brent.
Thank you. Ernest, give us a glimpse into your background and what's got you here in the renovation industry.
My background. Okay, how much time do we have for this? Basically, I grew up in a renovation family. So my dad and his brothers had a renovation company when I was a kid. It wasn't as glamorous as it can be here. It was seasonal work, and I was determined not to do that for a living. So I started off in university to be an engineer, did that for several years. So I came up here for the 4 months off of the summer for university, got a job as a framer, and did that for about 5 years. During that time, I met a girl who's now my wife. We bought a house, and I left framing to pursue renovations. So that house was my guinea pig, and from there we did like bathrooms for friends and friends of friends and that kind of stuff. And that evolved to bigger, and then I eventually hired a few guys and did that for a while. And then, as you know, I transitioned to with an acquaintance and started a sort of a development company. Mm-hmm. Did that for a while. So we did new builds and redevelopments and that kind of stuff around Calgary. And then that partnership kind of fizzled out and stuff. So I kind of went back to my roots here with renovations and started Fresh Start Projects and haven't looked back since.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you all these years. I know we helped you years ago, and then we're working together in the last few years too on the renovation projects. And we've gone back and forth, us passing on work and you passing on work to us. So it's been awesome to be working with you and your team as well.
It's been very collaborative.
Absolutely. So why have you chosen the renovation side of the industry?
I think for me, it was when I was framing, it was like, you go into new areas, it's like, pick one of three models. So during that 5 years, we did a lot of more, I guess it was more custom stuff, to be fair, but it still was repetitive, right? It's that same house, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was all about those corner pantries and stuff. So it was, corner pantries and turrets and all these things. And it was just over and over and over again. So I just felt like just getting really repetitive. So when I bought that first house and started doing the renovations, I thought, this is a lot more exciting. There's a lot more variety. And so I guess renovations became my passion. There's more challenges. It's more, it's a bit more exciting. I guess,
a lot of variety and
totally.
A lot of challenges too.
Yep. Which makes it interesting, right? So
absolutely.
It keeps it fresh.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's start with defining some terms that we all throw around. Ernest, how would you define renovations?
I think for me, a renovation is something that involves taking an existing structure and changing something so that it's being used differently than what it was originally. So, some people would say, doing paint or, taking out kitchen cabinets and putting them back in as a renovation. And it is, for sure. But for me, it's more about changing how something's being used, right? So, which again, why most of our stuff tends to have additions and stuff. Because we're taking an existing structure and we're making it better. We're making it function. It's more relevant to the way things are done today and that kind of stuff, right? Kind of like back to that corner pantry idea, right? Like it was, getting rid of that and opening the kitchen and adding an island and things like that. To me, that's more of a renovation than just taking out, painting your walls.
Right. Yeah.
Technically, it's probably a renovation, but in my mind, that's not what I would consider.
Yeah. And I think some people would consider, that those kind of simple things like painting and putting new flooring as a renovation because that's what they can afford, right? And that's respectfully, that is a renovation.
Totally.
But I think what you and I typically do within our sides of the profession is, for us, a renovation is internal renovation, which is, say, a 1,300 square foot bungalow. And, we're designing, taking out some walls, maybe taking a 3-bedroom, making it 2-bedroom, adding an ensuite, that kind of thing. So it's an internal reno. Right. And then there's the addition, like you were mentioning, what you guys do a lot of, and I know you do as well, the second stories. You add a second story to something, so you're expanding or doing some, like you said,
altering
altering it and updating it to a newer, sort of an updated lifestyle of a family of today that maybe doesn't work for a family that used to work for a family in the 60s or 70s.
Totally.
Yeah, excellent. What are some scopes of renovations that you guys work on?
Typically, like I said, we try to do the harder stuff, to be honest. Like like I said, there's, taking out kitchen cabinets and putting new ones in. I mean, there's companies that do that. For me, I would rather not do the types of projects. I would rather do things that are more challenging. They're more involved. We're on site for longer. I think clients will get more value from me and my team on a tougher, more involved renovation. And so that's what we kind of try to focus on. Stuff that involves, like I said, pulling things back, making things better, and usually adding square footage and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'd throw in there for us, if someone phones me and says, do you do basement development? I mean, we do that. Like when we do a custom home, we provide, part of that design is a basement development, but solely on its own, it's really not worth our time and probably not worth theirs. There's probably, like you said, better companies out there that are more set
up for that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Are there any types of renovations that you guys try to avoid?
So if you had asked me that a year ago, I would have said what we just talked about, like, maybe a kitchen or something simple like that. But now, after this past year, I would say I will definitely try to avoid projects where the clients are co-contractors. And we've had a couple projects recently where the client were co-contractors and lines got blurred and it gets tricky. Let's just be nice and call it gets tricky. So I think, moving forward, we definitely, internally, we have some parameters that we'll follow and be very sticky on our contract for this.
And when you say co-contract, is that sort of like someone who feels like they are going to save money by being maybe too involved, or they're the do-it-yourselfer, or they're all of a sudden now, let me do the kitchen, or I'm going to bring in my own trades?
So a little bit of both, I guess. So as you know, we've been focusing a lot now on high-performance building. So as you know, renovations and building right now in general is expensive. So add to that high-performance details, insulation, air tightness, all these types of things, and it gets even more expensive. So one way clients have been doing help to offset that cost is they're hiring us to take it to prime.
Okay.
Right. And so we take it to prime, and then they're taking it for the finals, for the finishes kind of thing. Right. But then, they're bringing in their people while they're doing our scope. Okay. And then so we're there with our team, and then they're also trying to bring their people in because they don't know the process. They're not general contractors, right? They're homeowners who are trying to do things. So they think to speed the project up, let's just get the kitchen guy there, let's get the finisher there, and let's get the painter involved. And so it's a big jumble of people all at the same time, and it's not the right order sometimes. And so you're working over top of people, and it's just, like I said, lines got blurry. It's just not the way I would have done it if we were doing it from start to finish. So like I said, we have some checks and balances here moving forward to try to avoid those situations.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Now that our clients have determined their scope, let's help them prepare and move forward from there.
Right.
What team members do you recommend your clients engage with?
So if we get called first, they're going to get my phone kind of thing. So they'll talk with me first. And I guess even if there are recommendations from other places like yourselves, it's usually through me first. The way we kind of do things is when the client calls us, we send them a questionnaire to kind of get started, get some background information from them to see where they're coming from. And then we'll do a site meeting. And during that site meeting, we'll take notes, go through what the scope is. If there's a plan, we'll go through the plan with them and take notes. And then we'll go back and do what we call our project analysis. So what we do is we get the client to come back to our office, and I basically build out a preliminary budget, and we do this analysis. And so we kind of walk through, regurgitate with them what we talked about at that meeting, and kind of give them a starting point of where we think their project's going to land. And then from there, we would get into a pre-construction service agreement. Is kind of how we kind of start our process.
Okay, excellent. So I'll jump in. Like for us, we like when someone comes to us and they're asking about a renovation, how we can help them. And, I always bring up how important a builder is, because you and I have talked about this for years, just how important having a builder part of the design process is from a costing perspective, from the knowledge that you guys bring on the, like obviously knowledge of construction, but timing, all the details around construction and the complexity of that, whether that's, a building permit approval or just the stages of construction, that sort of thing. And like you said before, all the stages and how they're supposed to happen in a certain order, not maybe how a client jumps in and thinks they can take over and do it themselves or be in control when they shouldn't be. So, okay. How do you help your clients determine the best, say, scope of renovation based on their goals?
It comes down to budget a lot of the time, right? I think, like I said, most people will, I feel like a lot of the times people kind of do things a little bit backwards, right? There's a lot of talk about budget and setting the budget and that kind of stuff, but realistically, it's the scope that you have control over. Like you don't really have control over your budget, right? Like if you have, wherever the money's coming from, say it's a line of credit and you have $100,000 to do this renovation, you can't change that number really. Right? Maybe you have some extra savings or whatever the case may be, but really it's the scope that you have more control over, which comes back to like you just talked about, right? Like having a whole team together to help you define the scope and the budget at the same time is what you kind of need, right? It's hard to set a budget and then try to bring the scope in, or have a scope and then try to establish the budget. It's just easier. It's more cohesive to have it all happen at once.
Right.
And to do that, you need to have all the players, right? You need to have the architect, you need to have the homeowner, you need to have a builder, because the builder is going to bring the other professionals. They'll bring the engineer, they'll bring in other consultants that are required, and then so you can have the full picture as to what the project entails. So you have a full scope, and then you can actually set a realistic budget for that scope, right? So,
Ernest, when can a client stay in their home during a reno, and when should they not be in their home?
Always move out.
Okay.
No, I think for the projects that we do, I think larger, more involved, I think it always makes sense to move out. If you're doing like a bathroom renovation, sure, you can stay there, big deal. But if you're doing things that are involving additions and, taking the roof off your house and things like that, I think it makes way more sense to move out, if at all possible. I've done projects where we were doing the main floor and they were living in the basement, and you're hating life the whole time. You can convince yourself to save a few bucks on of renting a place that, it won't be that dusty or it won't be that disruptive to our life. It is. I mean, it's I've done it myself personally, and I know you have too, lived through renovations and stuff. It sucks, right? It wears on you. You're trying to get your supper prepared for your family, and people are upstairs banging and hammering, and saws are going and stuff, and it grades on you over time, right? So it's a lot more enjoyable if you move out. You go back to your house to do your walkthroughs, that framing and all these different stages, and you see the progress, and it's exciting, and you get to go back to your rental or whatever, and make supper and do all these things. At least that way, when your project's done and you move in, it's exciting. You're happy to be home. You're settled. Your family's excited about the kids excited to see their rooms and that kind of thing. But if you're living there the whole time and it's move out. Yeah. Long story short, move out if at all possible.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Let's talk a bit more about budgets. What timelines do clients need to consider, and what expectations should they have? Ernest, do you think that establishing a budget is one of the most important things for a client to do?
I think I mentioned this earlier. I think it's not even the budget. I think it's the scope that's really the hardest thing and the most important thing to define. Because again, I think your budget is your budget.
So I know when people come to us, that the budget seems to be the first thing they want to know.
Right.
Right. So it's almost educating them to say it's a balance of the two.
Yeah.
Right. But I know it's because that's the money, right? That's the thing that they're always thinking, I want this result, a new basement, a new addition, and I want to cost this much. And I think that's the thing that I think is a struggle for people.
Totally.
And it's probably, again, where you and I can sit down with a client and help them say, if that's your budget, then your scope needs to be this.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, and that's why when like I said, when clients come to us, or even like when we get like drawings from other places, I do that preliminary budget up front, right? Because I want to give clients pricing as soon as possible. Because like I have a couple of projects on my desk right now where it's full plans, right? In one case, it's already a development permit submitted, and we're just giving them like ideas on pricing for the first time. So they're completely blindsided a lot of the time. Like right
they're
now,
so far through the process.
You're so far along, you've already like, committed, or, you're excited about the layout, you're excited about the elevations, you're excited about all these things. And then you get to budget and it's like, oh crap, like this is hundreds of thousands of dollars more than we thought. So now we've got to scale back.
Yeah.
So now, even though the project is still going to be, big and exciting, it's not what they thought it was going to be, right? So now there's kind of this like, now we're kind of settling, or we have to, figure something else out, right? So I think if you can have all that information as early as possible, then the project it's more exciting, because you're building the your scope and you're building the budget. So when it comes time to submit for permits, you kind of have they're together, right? It's cohesive,
aligned.
So exactly, it's aligned, right?
Yeah.
So the idea would be, we always try to give pricing like as soon as possible, so the client knows where they're at, and then they can decide like if we have to during that pre-construction service agreement. If they need to, pull back on scope, or if they can, free up some money from somewhere else or whatever to keep going. But at least they know what the decisions they're making. They know where they are with the budget, right? If they're adding or taking away, or if they can afford it or not, whatever, right? So,
Ernest, what have you experienced that has been a detriment to establishing a budget?
I think the biggest thing is when, like you said, you get your drawings done in isolation, right? You're with the designer. Like I said, against, advice a lot of the time to get a builder involved. People think that, we don't need a builder yet. We just want to go through our plan, get it done, and then we'll find a builder like later. Like that's next month or next year kind of thing, right? And then, like I said, you build this plan, you get people involved, you show up on site. There's asbestos, there's challenges with if we had a builder involved sooner, you could have maybe avoided a few things or added a beam or whatever the case may be to make things more cost effective. So I think, the detriment is not having the full team from the start is really seems to be the reoccurring theme for sure.
Yeah, I definitely confirm that, because I know that's in my past, that's been where either a client just says, no, like we want to focus on design, or that's the fun bit, or whatever it is, we'll do that later. And it usually goes bad because it's, they already, and I think sometimes it's because clients have established their own budget, which is scary, or they've just, they've unfortunately created one themselves for some reason, or somehow a Google search or something, and then they're so disappointed. Like you said, construction is just expensive, and they don't realize how costly and how complicated renovations are.
Well, I think that's what it is, right? I think if you have friends who built a new house in the suburbs, and maybe it was $350 a square foot or something like that to build a new house, right? And so they're thinking, well, it's $350 a square foot. We're adding 1,000 square feet to our house. That's $350. That's easy math, right? Renovations are not that, right? Renovations, I mean, I'll sometimes use square foot pricing just to get my preliminary budgets sort of established. But with what we do is custom. Square foot numbers don't really apply, except for maybe like flooring, maybe, right? Like that's pretty
specific items.
But when it comes to like generic construction and stuff, like with renovations, like that's just not reality for sure.
Yeah, excellent.
So that's budgets. What about like timelines? So for you guys in design, like what would you say for timelines clients can expect?
Once someone signs off on the proposal, we jump right into the as-built for a renovation. That's probably about 3 weeks. Then after that, we jump into design. That's about 3 months. And then depending on the complexity or scope of the project, if a development permit is required, that's another 3 months. And then typically construction drawings happen right after that, and that's just a short 2-week period there. So, all in, we're probably around the 3 to 6 months of time for a renovation prior to someone like yourself jumping in and starting the building permit application and starting construction.
So you're saying like 3 months if it's just a building permit sort of, and then 6 months if it's requires a development permit?
Right, yeah, because if it's just design and building permit, then we can get to the building permit within about the 3-4 month period. Right. Yeah. How about yourself? Where are you seeing timelines these days?
On the construction side, I mean, that's a wild card right there for sure.
What?
It depends on, there's so many variables.
We want exact dates.
Yeah, there's so many variables on that. Most of our projects with additions and stuff that we're gutting back to main floors and things like that, they're probably in the 5 to 7 month range a lot of the time. And again, it's weather dependent. There's a lot of variables in construction, right? I mean, that's why construction is so difficult and so expensive, right? There's so many variables you have to deal with. But I would say most of our projects are in that 5 to kind of 7 month range, probably.
What are you finding these days with like either material availability or like trades availability? Is that affecting those timelines as well?
Not so much anymore. I mean, everyone was talking about COVID for a long time there, about different lumber prices and all these things. But now things are pretty settled now, I think. And again, that comes back to having like the full team involved. That way, if there's special materials or something that's required, we can sort of start procuring those during the permitting process and stuff, right? So, so if you sort of plan ahead, none of those things are really an issue, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. What expectations do you feel your clients should have of you and your company and the services you're providing?
Expectations of us, I mean, high expectations, obviously.
Okay, good.
So the way we do things with Fresh Start projects, we've gone down the road, like I mentioned, with high performance. And so we've built an internal team. So I would consider myself more a builder than a project manager.
Okay.
So with the expectation is that we are going to be heavily involved in your project. So we are typically the ones like building it, essentially. Like, so we do a lot of in-house demolition and framing, finished carpentry, exterior stuff, the air tightness layers, those types of things. So for us, our clients, we see them often. They'll see us on site. We're not just showing up, with an iPad and checking off a few boxes. We're literally there like day in and day out, sort of building the project.
Yeah, much more hands-on than some contractors
we are,
that
for sure,
are basically bringing in trades to do almost everything.
And that's more project management. I mean, I've been there. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But for the stuff that we do, it's more complicated in a sense, I guess. Because on any given day at the start of a project, we're doing demolition, we're doing framing, we're doing air tightness layers and bringing membranes and stuff like that to try to tie inside to outside and stuff, right? Our stuff is not so cut and dry where we could have a demo crew come and do the demo, and then a framing crew come and do the framing. We're kind of doing it all kind of at the same time, just the kind of way it works out. So, so the expectation for our clients is that we're very involved in your project. Yeah. So we take. How about yourself, Brent? What can clients expect from you and your team?
Well, I think what people rely on us for is expertise. So there's that sort of side of not just the creativity, but understanding the bylaws, understanding code. So more the technical side, but also the creativity. So, knowing where can I put an addition on my property. Maybe they want it in the front, but it doesn't fit in the front from a setback perspective. So even like starting right from the beginning of a sort of feasibility, evaluation, giving them really good advice. So, asking them really good questions about the renovation. Why are they needing it? Is it lifestyle? Is it, more kids, all those kind of things. And then with that information, then we really feel like we can assist them in that design process to meet their needs. So I think that's what they're looking for is, again, a team member that's, really cares about their kind of new home, their family and their lifestyle. And we're there to create the ideal home for them. Ernest, what should homeowners be looking for in a contractor or builder?
I would say you need to look for someone with experience. You also have to sort of trust your gut a bit, I think, as well, right? I mean, you're going to be spending upwards of a year or two with these people. So if you don't enjoy being around the person, it's going to be a tough time, right? So I think you have to be around people you're comfortable with. You're going to be talking about, intimate details of your life and your finances and all these types of things. So you really want to be around people you feel you can trust. They're going to be in your home, touching your belongings and stuff. So, so you want someone that you can be comfortable with, but you also want someone who's done similar types of projects, probably. Obviously, look for ask for references and check those references and stuff. But at the same time, those are cherry-picked people as well, right? So you talk to 3 people. They're all your best clients, so obviously
don't only depend on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, ideally, your clients or the people you recommend to people are going to say nice things about you. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise that they say nice things about the builder that you're asking about. But I think it's taking all these different factors and then taking all decision makers together and sort of coming up with like, who do we feel comfortable using, right? Have they done similar projects? If their reference has been good, or do they seem like they can handle the type of project with the team they have or whatever the case may be. So there's a couple of different variables there for sure.
There's a lot of vulnerability in your relationship with them, right? Like you mentioned finance and some more personal things that don't really come up with us. But you guys, like that's why I tell clients, I said, if I was picking a contractor, one of the things that I would be looking for is like, can I have that difficult conversation with them? Like, because things do happen on site, or there might be a misunderstanding or whatever. But if someone doesn't have that relationship with you, or doesn't have that level of trust with you, it's hard for them to, hey, Ernest, hey, there might be a problem here, or hey, I thought you said. Right, and then you, I know you're a very honest, upfront guy. You'll come in and solve the problem. You'll have a conversation, have a very open, honest conversation with them. But I think some people, they may not trust a builder for some reason, or pick the cheapest one, and then and then all of a sudden a financial or a cost issue or question comes up, and then it happens a couple times, and they just fire the builder, or things kind of fall apart, unfortunately, instead of having a really deep communication and level of trust with the builder. Yeah.
How about in your line? What would you say people should look for when they're hiring a designer?
Well, I'd also say experience. I think that's a big thing. I mean, as you can tell with my gray hair, I've got a lot of experience, but I've also got a really great team of designers and technologists that I've invested in, and that the clients, or sorry, my team that are really invested in our clients and really take a lot of pride in what they're doing. We also have a lot of experience in renovations. Some other design firms, maybe specialize in custom homes or multi. We do a variety of renovations, single family and multi. And again, I've done hundreds of renovations myself, and so have some of my designers. I think, again, knowledge of the municipal bylaws and that sort of thing are really important. I mean, we also only specialize in residential, so some firms do, residential and commercial type work, and we know what we're good at, and we stick to the residential side.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We just focus on residential strictly for sure.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Ernest, as we wrap up here, I'd like to talk about some of the experiences you've had over the past few years. Can you give me an example of a renovation that went really well, and why?
Well, sure. So it was probably around this time last year, I guess. A project came to us through a designer. When it came to us, they had already started, design. They'd already had some preliminary selections done and stuff. So we put them through our whole spiel. We did, the pre-construction service agreement. We had they were waiting for snowbird parents to move out so they could get the project started. So we had selections done, we had our starting budget, we had the permit, we had ordered windows, all before the project started. And we had like a start date of I think it was like 2 months later kind of thing. So the project started in September, and then we were trying to get them in. It was a main floor renovation with a garage conversion with a small addition. Project started in September. We were trying to get them in for Christmas. We went through, they moved out. Everything kind of fell into place. We already knew there was asbestos. We already knew we had some challenges with the foundation and getting the contractor in to put the screw pile in. We had it all figured out before we started. So, we did our walkthroughs. There was very little changes. Everything was decided on. They moved in for Christmas. Happy days.
So well organized, and you had enough time to do it right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Ernest, on the flip side of that, do you have an example of maybe a renovation that didn't go so well?
So that was what we talked about earlier, the client co-contractors, if you will. Like everything I said before, like I said, we were all on site kind of at the same time. We weren't collaborative, right? They had people on site that weren't part of our team. We didn't know them. They didn't know us. They were trying to do their scope. We were trying to do our scope. We were overlapping each other. We were, it was not in the right order. It was a bit haphazard. That's definitely an experience I'll take with me moving forward.
And one to avoid next time.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you have a funny story, a funny sort of more humorous renovation story you want to pass on?
I have. I mean, there's lots of different ones over the years. Some of them are not really meant for TV, I guess. But this is just a tale. It's not necessarily funny to me, I guess. So when you do a renovation and you have a few new things in it, so keep saying this story to clients, whatever, when they say, we want to keep the toilet, right? So you have an old space and you have a couple new items in it, right? So in this case, it's a toilet. So, they bought the toilet, I don't know, 5 years ago, whatever it was. So it's the newest thing in the room. So they're like, we're going to save $1,000. We're going to keep the toilet. So we uninstall it. We store it on site. We move it 6 times. And as the job comes, we install it, and the client comes back, and now it's the oldest thing in the room. So they immediately walk in and are kind of like, what the heck is that toilet doing here? And we're like, that's the one we saved. Remember, it was brand new, 5 years ago, blah, blah, blah. So we end up obviously taking it out, getting a new toilet and that kind of stuff. So it's not really a funny story, but it's funny to me because it happens very often that, what seems new at the beginning of a job is not new at the end of a job.
And sometimes what clients think they're going to save $1,000 or $500 or $1,000 on isn't worth it at the end when they spent $500,000 on the renovation.
Well, it's just, again, a thing of like when it's the one new thing in a space, but now it's the oldest thing in the space, right? So it flips at the end of the job.
And it becomes very obvious then.
It is very obvious at the end. Yeah. That old mirror or whatever it was that seemed new at the time, now it's the oldest thing in the room and it stands out kind of thing, right? So, yeah. Funny to me, I guess, as the builder, but yeah.
And it created another renovation just to redo the toilet or replace it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, excellent. Ernest, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming in and chatting.
Problem.
And as usual, we've had a good conversation, really insightful, and really appreciate your expertise and your passion for what you do. And I love your client-centered experience and your drive to really work with often our clients, but also your own clients and taking all your years of experience and applying it to your clients' projects. So thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you.
We hope this has given you some insight into your future home renovation. Give us a call at 403-242-2704, or you can reach us at our website at beginwithdesign.com, where you can see our past projects, some info about our team, and set up a no obligations meeting. We'd love to hear from you. You can also get a hold of Ernest at his website, freshstartprojects.com. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.